In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. Folks, it is 61 days until Election Day. And of course, our goal is to get you focused on that. Make sure you go to vote.org to double check your registration, to register to vote. You can also fill out the 2020 census. Why is that important? Because of this. In 2019, Georgia purged nearly 200,000 people from the rolls in error. The American Civil Liberties Union of Georgia released a report by the Palast Investigative Fund titled Georgia Voter Roll Purge Errors. The report concluded that the state has incorrectly removed nearly 200,000 Georgia citizens from the voter rolls in 2019. The state's removals are likely to affect the most vulnerable. Joining us right now is Greg Palast. Greg, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. 200,000, that easily sways an election.
You think losing 200,000 voters might affect the election? Yeah.
In a massive way.
Exactly. And I'm going to tell you something else. I know you'll be shocked to hear this, Roland, but of the 198,000 people that they've wrongly removed, overwhelmingly young people and voters of color. So, you know, are you shocked?
No, I'm not shocked. In fact, when you talk about those young voters, I have been telling civil rights groups when they've been talking about voter suppression, don't just talk about it in the framework of just people of color. They've got to be telling white folks who are young, hey, they're targeting you too. In 2012, a county clerk in Wisconsin admitted moving an early voting location off of a college campus because too many of those young whites were voting Democrat, and she moved it to a far out place, which made it harder for them to be able to get to. We've seen the same thing happen in North Carolina. And so I've said to young white folks, y'all are part of voter suppression as well. So that's also why I keep telling people they have to check their registration, Greg. Go to vote.org to double check it, because the problem is, and give us your site as well, because people are assuming, oh, no, I'm good. And I'm like, no, you got to double and triple check because they might screw you.
Well, if you are in Georgia, I really want you to go to this website. Now, pay attention. It's savemyvote.org. Excuse me, savemyvote2020.org.
Savemyvote2020.org.
Yes.
Got it.
You can also go to my name, gregpalast.com, and we'll link you through. Look, here's what they did. They said all these people moved. 300,000 people. Well, where are the moving trucks, Roland? Atlanta should be emptied out if all these people left. So I was suspicious. So I hired the post office's experts. The post office has people that are licensed to go through address change. The state didn't use the people that the post office licenses to tell you where people live for sure. And by the way, that's in the law. But, you know, what does the federal law mean in Georgia? They've ignored it. As far as we could tell, they found these addresses, I don't know, in a cereal box or something. But all I can tell you is they have very effective at removing voters of color and young people. And 200,000, yeah, that's going to affect November. I'm very worried that people think that they can vote, because remember, if you're purged, that is, you're erased from the voter rolls, and it's in Wisconsin and Georgia and Michigan and many, many states. But if you're purged, you're not getting that mail-in ballot. You can't mail in your ballot if it's not mailed to you, and that's part of the trick. And most people have no idea that they've lost their right to vote.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and we see, again, how they're playing games with it. We're seeing right now what is happening. Look, the Republicans, and I have no problem saying it, they want to shave off thousands of votes because they know they're not growing their party. If they can depress turnout, 1, 2, put all these barriers in place, 3, we see what's happening with the post office, and then even if people do vote, they're going to be looking for every single error. I've got folks now, Greg, who are saying, Democrats, forget mailing your ballot, strap up, get fully loaded, and vote in person because they're going to be targeting those mail-in votes.
Yes. Let me explain something. 22% of all mail-in ballots never get counted, Roland. That's the MIT study. 1 in 5 ballots don't get counted. Now, there's ways for you to avoid having your ballot canceled out on you. Number one, make sure you're registered. You're not getting that ballot if you're not registered. 1 in 10 people who ask for the ballot don't get them or don't get them on time. So ask like right now.
Yep.
Like right after this program, you go and ask for your mail-in ballot if you want it now. And you mail in at least a week and preferably 2 weeks early. And then if you have healthy friends, they should go in and be poll watchers for the vote count, because you're right about something. When ballots are mailed in, about 1 in 8 mail-in ballots is challenged. They don't like your signature. 100,000 people lost their vote for postage due. In fact, signature, 141,000 ballots were thrown out because of suspect signature. Now, were there 141,000 fraudulent, felonious forgers who stole ballots and forged your signature? No, no one, not one person was arrested for forging an absentee ballot, but they disqualified 141,000. Be very careful how you fill it out. My sister, who's a lawyer, lost her vote, her mail-in vote, because she didn't properly fill in the bubble next to her candidate.
Wow.
Follow the instructions. And in many states, by the way, you're going to have to have a witness. In Alabama, 2 witnesses, or you're going to have your ballot notarized. So you might be right that the best thing, if you're safe enough, if you are young enough, healthy enough, bring your hazmat suit and an umbrella and some food and get ready to wait 4 or 5 hours in that line to vote. But I would rather you vote early when there's no lines.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Understand there's no lines in midweek when people are at the early voting stations. Almost every state has it. And a lot of states let you fill out an absentee ballot and then bring it in so you don't have to go through the post office. Get your ballot, fill it out, bring it in, put it in a drop box, your county elections office, or take it to the polling station midweek during early voting. There's no one there. It's safe, it's quick, and you don't have 4 hours in line on Election Day.
Greg Palast, I appreciate it. Again, go to gregpalast.com, GregPalast.com. If you are in Georgia, to double check to make sure that you have not been removed from the voter rolls. And is it SaveMyVote2020.org?
Exactly. SaveMyVote2020.org.
Okay.
You got it right.
All right. Greg, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You're the best, Roland. Bye.
Thank you very much, sir. Robert, I want to start with you. You're there in Georgia. Stacey Abrams constantly talked about this in her race against Brian Kemp. This also, though, is not just Georgia. That lawsuit, when it came to purging people from the voter rolls, which the Supreme Court allowed, which they allowed to go through, which is interesting because when it came to the gerrymandering case, they said, hey, we don't have any role when it comes to political gerrymandering, but they allowed that to go through. There was a white guy who sued in Ohio, which opened the door to voter purges, where they say, hey, you haven't voted in 1 or 2 elections, we can remove you from the rolls. We have to get our people to be constantly in a state of mind, check your registration, because I had a frat brother who texted me, he voted in the primary this year. Watches this show. He's in Arizona. Went back. He wasn't on the voting roll. He re-registered.
Well, Roland, on that point, I think part of what we have to do is look at what Republicans do. They are playing chess at a very high level. They plan these things out 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead of time. We were fighting back when I was in college in Georgia, marching against the voter ID laws, fighting in 2010 against reducing the number of days for early voting, fighting against the restrictions on absentee ballots. So what we have to start doing is thinking about these things strategically and not figuring out 60 or 70 days before the election that the game is about to be rigged. We are going to have to get these Democratic groups and these left-leaning groups to put the necessary money into elections, put the necessary money into getting people to fighting against voter suppression in the far term, and not simply waiting until a couple months before to understand the game is being rigged against us. And in the meantime, we have to put the money into community-based organizations that are fighting to protect the vote.
Brianna? Can't see you. Can't hear you. I'm sorry, but can't hear you. I think you're muted. Unmute yourself. There we go.
Georgia, there we go. Sorry about that. Georgia's under Republican control. It's a laboratory for stealing democracy at this point. And it's crazy to think that nearly 200,000 people in Georgia were removed from the voter file under the pretense that, they had moved. In fact, that they did it. So, it makes up 63% of the people who are removed as registered voters. That's scary. And, who gets held accountable for this? Absolutely nobody. We've seen it now over and over and over again. We've seen it in different states. It's going to get worse. We need a lot of people on deck. I do like the suggestion. I know more states were ramping up of putting drop boxes instead of mailing. But, Republicans, have been targeting disenfranchisement for a while. That's how Stacey Abrams lost her election, little over 50,000 votes. And Republicans control the state. And so it's even crazier that, the reported number of voters who are legally removed to be even higher, as this number doesn't include those who moved within their district, who actually did move. And so someone, could have moved from apartment A to apartment C in the same building, and Georgia would have removed them from the list of registered voters, which is insane. And so we do need to make sure that we're equipped. I do know, I think it's, I can't remember, but I do know that there's now a store that's going to have their workers be poll workers. We need more poll workers.
That's the gap. Old Navy. I'm sorry, Old Navy.
Old Navy, yes, absolutely, Old Navy, and that's very important because a lot of the people who were poll workers previously were old, and they may not be able to be around people as much. And it's very, very important to make sure that we're protecting the vote. There's people to make sure there's no voter intimidation. And so we've been ramping up on that. And I think it's very important to make sure today that you go to make sure that you're still registered to vote, and that you, that if not, you get registered to vote, because in some states, starting this month, you're going to receive a ballot if you're doing absentee. So, it seems like it's early, but for some states, it's really not. It's almost voting time. So we need to make sure that we're on the rolls and that we can vote.
Scott, bottom line is this here. Again, part of our job is to ensure that you don't get caught up in the web. So to Greg's point, 22% of mail-in ballots are getting thrown out. Bottom line, if you're going to vote by mail-in, check everything. Check full name, check your address, do everything exactly the way it's supposed to go to ensure your ballot is going to be counted.
Yeah, I listen to all of these messages, and they're all out there, and we're all saying the right thing. I often wonder how many people of your frontline voters or your average voter are really listening, right? They say to themselves, how hard can it be to vote? I got it. I'm going to cross my T's and dot my I's, and I'll get there, and so forth and so on. And I guess my message to them is that, no, this is not going to be easy. We're running against three different opponents as Democrats. We're running against the GOP and Donald Trump. We're running against foreign interference in our democracy. The reports have come out on that. And then we're running against voter suppression, not only in swing states, but all around the country, and not just in the South. And so the Democrats, regardless of us being up 10 to 12 points, if you will, or even 7 points, run and vote like you're down 7 to 10 points. Vote early, do it the right way. Or as he said, I love the idea of your last guest, he said, fill it out, right? And take it down early in the middle of the day when nobody's there and do your early voting. That's a perfect scenario for those who may be elderly, those who are middle-aged, and even young people, despite COVID. And it's healthy, too, if you do it that way with your mask and what have you versus these long lines and stuff. We got to pay attention on this one, right? Because our life and our future and our future of our country literally depend on it. And so we've got to treat it that way. And I hope everyone watching and their families treat it that way, because it's super serious business. It is nothing to sleep on.
Well, here's the deal, though, Robert. They are listening. They are listening. I mean, I get the emails. People have gone back and checked. But here's the piece. You got to do it every day. Look, mainstream media, they aren't doing what we're doing, okay? They're not doing this, all right? Mainstream media, that was that case at CNN. They were working on a voter suppression documentary that was going to air in October. I was like, what the hell are y'all doing? The registration's already passed. I'm like, you should be working on voter suppression stuff long before the registration deadline. No, this has to be a constant deal. We got to, every single day, every person who is listening, the nearly more than 4,000 people who are watching live on YouTube, the more than 1,000 people who are on Facebook, the people who are on Periscope, you got to, again, all I'm simply saying is, folks, it takes 2 minutes. Go to vote.org, double check, make sure you're still registered. If you're not, click the registration. You can register right there. We have to be in that constant state every day, Robert, every day, every day, every day.
Well, a big part of it is understanding
Robert, go ahead.
A big part of it is understanding demographics. We're talking about Georgia. Let's remember that Georgia is a state that is 35% African American. That's 10% Latino. That's 5% Asian American. 52% females. Everybody knows Atlanta has a humongous LGBTQIA/PK plus population. But instead of us harnessing that, instead of us focusing on making sure we can get those turnout numbers, often what the Democratic Party does is try to get those South Georgia farmers in Cairo who voted for Jimmy Carter and think that they can get them back to voting Democrat. No, focus on getting the people who like you to get out there and vote instead of trying to find this elusive white working class vote, as Donald Trump says, suburban wife, to come back over to the party. Focus on the people who are going to vote for you. Put out messaging that motivates them, and more importantly, ensure that you can get all of their votes counted. That regardless of what the rules are, know what the rules are, and then put money into getting those people to the ballot box. It's not that hard, but for some reason, I think Democrats are wed to this idea of the 1950s that the truck drivers and factory workers and the white working class voters are going to come back to them. When you can, if you double down and investigating African Americans to support you, putting in messaging, putting in the dollars, then you can win with that.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.